Hello, film fans, and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, did you ever study botany at school? I did, and it was really boring. I mean, my science teacher used to spend ages on really dull stuff like photosynthesis and respiration and banging on about, what the chemical formula for glucose was. I can still remember it's C6H12O6. And I remember at one point she got absolutely apoplectic because somebody described plants as breathing instead of respiring, which is apparently completely incorrect. And anyway, it wasn't much fun. I used to think, oh, why do we have to do plants again? They're really dull. And then I watched David Attenborough's The Green Planet. Now, this programme completely passed under the radar for me. I'm a big fan, as I've mentioned before, of David Attenborough's work. But I have to say, the BBC's advertising of this show was absolutely useless. I only found out about it because I was listening to Classic FM one day, and they said, and we've got the soundtrack of the new David Attenborough programme. And I thought, oh, that must be Prehistoric Planet, which is coming out shortly. And then they played this quite beautiful piece of music and said, and that was a soundtrack for Green Planet. And I thought, what? I mean, I've heard of Blue Planet, there's been two of them, but Green Planet? What's that about? So I looked it up, and it turns out that back in January, David Attenborough narrated a very well produced and directed and beautifully shot documentary about plants. And it's absolutely brilliant, and everybody should go and see it immediately if they haven't done so. And if they had done so, they should watch it again, because it's great. I think back in the 90s, if I remember rightly, David Attenborough did a similar program called The Life of Plants, where they used the latest camera techniques to show plants, their lives kind of speeded up. So you could see it in sort of time that feels relevant to humans. Because, of course, the problem with plants is that most of them move so slowly that we don't really see them move at all. And as a result, we plants are kind of viewed as not being properly alive, aren't they? I mean, even vegans eat plants. And I'm not criticising vegans for doing so, because I've got to eat something. But we don't tend to see them as living organisms in the same way as we do, say, animals or birds or even reptiles and insects. So seeing them at a faster speed than they generally move at shows us that actually plants are absolutely fascinating. And now some of the stuff on this documentary is absolutely amazing. They've got this brilliant scene where they've got these young balsa trees, and a tree's fallen down in the Amazon, and now there's a big space. And these plants are now shooting up towards this patch of sunlight to try and get there first. And they've got to try and maneuver through all these little lianas who are pushing out their I don't know what exactly their stems, I suppose they probably called. I'm not an expert in botany, as you can see, but they're kind of like little lassos, and they're trying to catch hold of them. When they get hold, obviously they wind round them and they essentially strangle the plants as they try and climb up them. But the balsa trees have actually got these really little fine hairs on their leaves, and that means that when the lianas try and attach themselves to them, they kind of slide off and find it more difficult to attach. And it's absolutely brilliant. Of course, it's all shown sped up, so you can actually see the sort of the lianas moving their lassos to try and catch hold of something. And then you can see close up the sort of the hairs as the lianas slide off them, and it's brilliant. It's as good as anything in any modern BBC documentary like Blue Planet or Blue Planet 2 or Planet Earth 2. It's absolutely fantastic. But there's some other really good shots as well. There's this brilliant one of these giant water lilies. Now, I had heard of giant water lilies. I think sometimes people have them as ornamental things in their ponds, but I never particularly thought of them as very interesting. They're just a plant. They're like water lilies, aren't they? But they're much bigger. But no, they're terrifying. They have these really spiky little buds that they use, and they essentially wave them around like flails in the water. It reminded me, don't know if you ever saw the thing. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was a very old program called Robot Wars, where people designed robots and fought them against each other, and they'd often have things that spun round and bashed into each other. And these plants have got very similar things. They've kind of got buds like maces, and they swing them round a bit like a morning star flail, and they basically take out any vegetation that's on the surface of the water, and they knock it out the way, and then once they've cleared the space, their leaves then unfold, and they show it in slow motion, so it's absolutely beautiful. But at the same time, it's terrifying because their leaves, obviously because the buds that they're in are sort of spiky, they unfurl, and as they unfurl, the spikes sort of come out, and they skewer any plants that haven't been taken out by the flail already and kill them, and you get these whole patches of water in South America, I think it is, where they're just carpeted with giant water lilies because nothing else can grow there, because anything below the surface of the water can't get any light because the leaves are blocking it out, and anything on the surface has been either skewered by the flail or been skewered by the leaves. And it's absolutely brilliant, but also really terrifying. I'm really glad that giant water lilies do move slowly, because otherwise humans would be toast. They've got some other things as well. I remember when I was at school, they did a production of Little Shop of Horrors, and I mean, I was quite a timid child at the time, but even so, I was absolutely terrified by the idea of this man-eating plant. I mean, they had, like a huge, like life-size model of the plant, if I remember rightly, and it was, well, I found it at the time really intimidating. But oh no, what if I told you there are plants in Borneo that are every bit as terrifying as the plant in Little Shop of Horrors, and they're real? They've got these flowers that they show you called corpse flowers. And first of all, I think they live only for like a day, and they stink of rotting flesh. So that's a good start, isn't it? But they've got these kind of like little nodules on them, and hairs, like fine bristles. So they almost look like well, they are alive, obviously, but they look like they're animals. And then they've even got like patterns on them that look a bit like teeth. I don't know what the advantage to a plant in kind of evolutionary terms having patterns like that on them. I'm presuming it's got some advantage. It presumably isn't just to look pretty, but it looks like it's got a mouth, and basically the plant attracts flies to it because obviously it smells like a dead corpse, and then the flies land on it, obviously, and as they travel around on it and try and find where this rotting flesh is coming from, they then get dabbed with pollen, and then they fly off to the next one and obviously pollinate. So it's obviously very, very clever, but it looks terrifying, and it has all the other sort of things you'd imagine, like things like Venus flytraps, which I actually owned for a while when I was at university. And actually, Venus flytraps aren't very big. They're about flower heads are like that big. But again, they show you all that in slow motion as well, so you see exactly where the insect touches the little hairs inside it, and then it goes crunch and gets them. And I've actually seen this happen, obviously when I owned them, and it happens fast as well. And that was pretty cool as well, just to see it all, really close up in fine detail. Really brought the thing to life for me. So yeah, watch Green Planet. It's absolutely fantastic. And just as an aside, as a further incentive to watch this show, you probably think, oh, David Attenborough, he might be over 90, but he has a pretty cushy life, doesn't he? I mean, he gets to go around the world with a film crew, and he stands in front of something interesting and beautiful, and he talks about it for a while, and then he pops off back home to his nice house in London, and then he has to come in a few days a week and do some recordings of him voicing over and talking in this very deep, intense voice about something absolutely fascinating. Well, you'd be wrong, because in this show, he gets stabbed by a cactus, and you probably think I just made that up. I'm not joking. He does get stabbed by a cactus. He has gloves on, and it's one of the funniest things I've seen, because he goes up to it and says, this choya cactus is very well protected, and it might look cuddly, but be warned, it's got huge spines, and I wouldn't go anywhere near it without this glove on. He puts the glove on, and he touches it, and he does indeed, get stabbed by the spines, and then he goes, ow! One of them's just gone through the glove. I hope he was all right. I mean, I assume he is, because he's doing the voiceover for Prehistoric Planet, so he presumably hasn't got septicemia. But it was quite amusing. I do like it when things like that go slightly wrong. Clearly they hadn't given him thick enough gloves. Like, yeah. If you'd ever thought that his life was easy, think again, the things this man does for your entertainment. And he's well over retiring age as well. So good for him. And it's nice. It's always great to see David Attenborough doing his thing and narrating over BBC documentaries. Hopefully he'll be around to do it for a long time to come. But anyway, that was the Sherlockian. Thanks very much for watching, film fans. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.